Hi, this is Boruch Rabinowitz, Making a Difference for the Jewish People. And today we're going to be having a conversation with Rabbi Aryeh Pamensky, who's a world-renowned marriage expert, as well as a coach to people in the hedge fund business, and a personal friend of mine, a mentor, somebody that I feel very close to, and has made a difference and continues to make a difference for the Jewish people. Hi, Aryeh, Rabbi Pamensky.
How are you, Baruch?
Very well. Thank God I'm really well. It's a real pleasure and honor to speak to you today. We go back a long time.
We sure do.
Many years in Toronto and Jerusalem. I have the pleasure and the benefit of you coaching me on different issues in my life. And it's been really great and a pleasure to know. I know your whole family, actually. I know your brother, your sister, your parents.
Sure, we go back a long, long way since I was basically a kid. I met you when I was 18.
Right. So now you're grown up, and you are a world-renowned marriage expert. You do many other things. You became a rabbi, a world-renowned marriage expert. You do coaching for hedge fund people.
Correct.
It's billions of dollars. Let me ask you a question. I've been in some of your marriage seminars.
Yeah.
And now you're launching a new thing, happywife.com.
That's right.
But I was when you gave these marriage seminars, there were thousands of people, there are hundreds, thousands of people, and I've been to them. And you have people rolling on the floor. And at the same time, it's very entertaining, but you're giving people, and you've given me insights into how to have a happy marriage, how to make your wife happy. And the wives like it, the husbands like it. It's like amazing. But let me ask you something. How do you deal with thousands of people clapping for you and saying how great you are and giving them insight? What's it like for you personally?
Well, let me tell you this. Let me tell you a story how I got into it. And that in doing that, you'll get an insight into why that really doesn't mean anything to me. I was at Aish Torah. I was a student of Rav Noach Weinberg Zatzal, and I was at Aish Torah from 1984 to 1994. And when I came there because my brother was there, and I came in really as a clean slate. I had no preconceived notions of Judaism one way or another. I wasn't negative. I wasn't positive. And when I saw the wisdom of the Torah, and I was exposed to it over those years, and I started learning and I started seeing the life wisdom in the Torah, I was blown away. I was blown away. And as I evolved in my own understanding, and I was a Talmud of Rav Noach, so Rav Noach Weinberg, would sit you down, he'd hit you on the face and smack your cheeks and say, Aryeh. And everything he would do would be, Aryeh, what are you going to do for the Jewish people? How is this going to impact the Jewish people? He had this way of globalizing things. So I'm looking at whatever I'm looking at. I see a small, he lifts your eyes and he says, look at the bigger picture. Look at the world. What impact you want to have on the world? So through that, always, how do we take this wisdom and impact the masses? Now, because of my personality, I'm really into self-help growth and self-help movement, and there's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the self-help stuff, and tremendous amount of our brethren, the Jewish people, are going to these different self-help movements. And I said, why can't we have self-help that's Torah-based? Why don't we copy them? See what they're doing in terms of their methodology, but we can use the Torah, our own 3,000-year-old wisdom. We can use that as the basis. This tried, tested, and true wisdom, we can package it in a modern way and use it as a basis for growth. Why not do that? So when I developed this marriage seminar, it was my fourth seminar that I developed was the marriage seminar. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the first thing I did, I said, okay, self-help, success. I created a seminar called Success Now. And it was very intense and workbook, and people didn't want to do, people who did it were intense people, but it didn't have a mass appeal because it was, oh, you want to be successful? I'll teach you how. Work hard, you know, like, and I'm going to show you how. Like, I don't want to work hard. So, so that one morphed into another seminar on success. And then I did something called Vision Quest, which was a workbook, a 3-month intensive workbook where I put groups together and I worked one-on-one with people to find your vision in life. What are you here for? What's your purpose? And I created a whole methodology for people to uncover their own purpose in life. But again, no mass appeal. Pre-internet, there was no mass appeal. It was one-on-one and it was hard work. And I had a couple come to me to do this vision.
Okay, sorry, we had a glitch.
So I had this couple, yeah, no worries. I had this couple, they came to me and they said, want to do Vision Quest? And I said, sure. And first meeting, I got out the workbook, so we start working together. And they were kind of distracted. They weren't really into it. And I said, what's going on? They said, well, we're getting married in a month. I said, you're getting married in a month and now you've decided to do this intense work right before your wedding? Are you crazy? This isn't the time for this. I said, wait 6 months and then you'll come and then we'll do it then after things die down a little bit. This isn't the time to be doing a deep dive. So they said, well, actually, you know, after we're married, we're more interested in doing a marriage program. Do you have one that we can do? And I went, sure. I said, put a group together, call me, put a group together, and I'll do it. Never thinking I'd hear from them again on that topic. Anyway, 6 months later, they called me and they said, we have a group together. When can we do your marriage seminar? And I went, what?
Where was this?
In Toronto.
Yeah.
In Toronto. And I said to them, oh, look, you know, let me check my schedule. And I was faking, looking at my schedule, saying, and I said, oh, I'm booked up for 3 months, but here's a date that I can start. And they went, great. So we booked that date, and I hung up the phone, and I went, I better come up with something. I got to create a seminar in 3 months. And I actually looked back on the notes. You know, every student of Rabbi Weinberg had the honor before your wedding of sitting down with Rabbi Weinberg, where I had 2 meetings with him. Each one was about an hour and a half. And he said, and he taught us the secrets to a happy marriage from a Jewish perspective with his wisdom. And I took furious notes. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to those notes. And I'm going to start there to see if something will come out. And I took furious notes, and I figured those notes were a good place for me to start to see how to create a marriage seminar. And that stuff is gold. So I used that as the basis. You know, Rav Noach's saying was a happy wife is a happy life. That's where it came from. And I used that notes as a basis for creating a structure for a marriage seminar. And that was really a workshop. It was a 12-week workshop with I think 5 couples. And that was the structure, which turned into an 8-week workshop, which I did for about a year. And then somebody asked me, and they said to me, it was actually an Asia Torah conference. I'm going to answer your long-winded way to answer your question. But it was actually an Asia Torah conference, 2001. There was, right after 9/11, there was an Asia Torah Partners Conference in Florida. And people were still scared to travel. I think it was November. So the conference was a little smaller than usual because people were afraid. But the people who went there were all, it was an amazing group of people. There's probably like 400 people instead of 1,000 people, something like that.
I was there.
They asked me, do you want to teach? They heard I was doing marriage stuff, and they asked, do you want to teach? Oh, you were there. So I was asked, do you want to teach the marriage stuff? So they gave me 1 class. They gave me 2 classes. The first class I gave, I said, what do I do? I have an 8-week seminar, like an 8-week program. How do I do it in an hour or 2 hours? So what I did, I said, I'm going to take the jokes, the funniest part from all 8 weeks, and I'll do the first half in the first segment and the second half in the second segment. And I just put all the jokes together and then told the stories around the jokes and gave the lessons through the jokes. I said, we'll see how that works. And over 12 weeks, there was an hour, there was very funny segments. And I put it together. And the first lecture I gave, you know, there was probably 30, 40 people at the beginning who came to listen. And then people started running out and bringing friends in. And by the end of that first hour, the people were standing in the back and they were rolling. So they said, look, you know, for your next class, we don't want to make it just one of the segments. We're going to put everybody together. We went into the auditorium and Rav Noach was sitting there, you know, looking up at me while, you know, and and then everyone was, and I did the second half, which was funnier than the first half. The second half was really dealing with communication between men and women, which is a hilarious topic, and then teaching lessons. And everyone was blown away because, including me, because this was a revolutionary way of teaching over material back then, especially about marriage and getting people to see the messages of Judaism where they could relate to it, laugh about it, laugh about themselves, relate to it, and it was, the message was, and the tools, because they came from such a great source, were very practical. And I remember after that lecture, it was an eruption of energy. And I remember after that lecture going into the room, the bedroom, and everyone was still there, sitting down, and I just started weeping. I started crying, uncontrollably weeping. And after the weeping stopped, I'm like, that's a weird reaction. Like, what was that about? And I realized in the moment the power of what I just tapped into and the heavy responsibility that came with that. Because I knew now what I was going to be doing for the next 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. And I felt the weight of that responsibility. Any other organization, any other venue, it would have been, whoa, look at me, I'm awesome. People are clapping for me. I'm a hero. Wow, I validated my existence and now people love me. With this organization, it's like, uh-oh, I just tapped into some greatness. I feel the responsibility. How I'm going to use this to help the Jewish people, and how I'm going to use this to help the world.
That's an amazing story. So you really found your calling in this class that you threw together, a bunch of jokes, and you really realized that you have the responsibility to teach this to other people. One thing I remember that you said in that seminar so many years ago was that I don't care if all you guys get up and clap for me. The thing that matters most to me is if my wife's going to come up to me after and say, Aryeh, you were great.
That's right. Wow, you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful because, you know, your spouse is really the only person that really knows you. The only way that you would know me when I'm giving a seminar, even a talk like this, an interview like this, is what I present to you. And if I'm great at it, you'll love me, you'll clap, and you'll say you're awesome. But we know deep inside, you know, okay, it's nice. But your spouse knows you. And if your spouse knows you beyond the glitz and the glamour and the mask and the insecurities and the worries and all the nonsense that we have beneath the mask, if your spouse goes to you and say, wow, that was something, that would mean more to me than if the entire world stood up and cheered. Because it's real. It's real. You know, and that's really one of the keys to, it's interesting you said that. That is one of the keys to a great marriage. And that's why marriage is so hard. Because a real marriage is when you're real. And people are so scared to reveal their real self. Because there's places we've been avoiding for a very long time in our life, and we don't want to go there. But in order to have a good marriage, you have to go there. You have to give your real self. Otherwise, it's a fake marriage. I'm going to present to you what I want you to know about me. I'm going to present to you what I'm hoping you'll like about me. That's not real. A real relationship demands a real person. And a real person is the person who has the courage to be real with their spouse.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Look, you tantalized me, and you're starting this whole new project. I don't know if you want to call it a project, but happywife.com. I would really appreciate if you can share with us some of the content, one or two things you already did, but a little more on what this, the key ingredients of a happy marriage.
Well, let me share with you sort of why I'm launching happywife.com at this time. Because it's really, happywife.com has been, my domain name for about 14, 15 years. And what happened is I went around the world teaching marriage seminars. For 6 years, I was gone 12 days a month, and I was teaching 100 cities, thousands of people. I was on radio and television, on national TV. I was in print. I really was going quite far. And I got to a point where I realized that I'm sort of just helping people an inch deep. And I really want to take and help couples in a much deeper way. So I did much less traveling, and I used the internet at that time more as a calling card, but I opened up a counseling center, the Pamensky Relationship Institute here in Toronto. And I did a lot of counseling, and I spent years honing my counseling, trying to figure it out. And after a while,
so hold on,
all the research.
Hold on 1 second. I was very curious about that because you were going full blast, and all of a sudden I felt like you went underground. Like, what happened to you? And I remember you saying something to me, all the glamour, it's like amazing, but I didn't really get the rest of the story. What you're telling me now is that you really wanted to go much more in depth.
Right. What I wanted to do is I found that what I had done was the program was wonderful. The joke program that I was traveling around the world with was wonderful, and it opened people up, and it got people excited about, a first taste of Judaism and a first taste of ideas about marriage. But after doing it for 6 years, I found that program wasn't transformational. It was informational, and it was educational, and it was entertainment, but I didn't find it was really transformational.
What's the difference between making a difference, helping people, improving their marriage, and transformational? How do you define your terms there? How do you define your terms about what's inspirational, educational, really making a difference, and transformational? What do you mean exactly?
Transformational is where you actually see a marriage go from terrible to great, from mediocre to intimate, from good to amazing. That's transformational. And I didn't have that opportunity when I was traveling around doing the media tours of experiencing the transformation. They may have. It's possible that people were turned on and transformed. I didn't get that feedback, but for me personally, I personally wanted to be part of the journey of the transformation of their marriage. So I figured the way to do it, a lot of couples came to me for counseling after I would talk, the speaking tours. And I said, look, I'm not a therapist at that point. I'll give you some advice. And I started developing a way of talking to couples to help them through, their issues. And after a while, I developed a system. And at the time when I did it, I had a 100% success rate with couples. And I started only seeing couples who had visited lawyers and who had gone to other counselors. And my favorite phone call was, Rabbi Pamensky, yep, you're our last resort.
Wow.
If I hear that, I was like, you guys are in. And that's the couples that I worked with for many years. And what I did is I developed a program for them, one-on-one, very intensive, where it was 6 months. You have to commit to 6 months. You have no choice. You're going to pay me for 6 months. No quitting. And this is what's going to happen. There's the intake, find out what's going on. Then for the first month, 2, 3, depending on the couple, we're going to talk about how you created this experience of a terrible marriage for yourself. When you were getting engaged, what was your vision of a marriage? You're sitting in this and you can't stand each other. You can't even look at each other. You can't speak to each other. But when you were engaged to this person, was that your vision? Did you say in 7 years, my goal is to have a marriage where I hate you? Is my goal to have a marriage where it's boring, where there's no intimacy? Was that my goal? Of course not. What was your goal? The goal was to have an incredible marriage. All right, now look, you're an intelligent person. You're a good person. You're a well-meaning person. You're a loving person. And how did you create this? I didn't create it.
Right.
You did. So what gave you permission in your own mind to be okay with having a terrible marriage or a mediocre marriage? How did that happen?
It was their fault.
Well, yeah, okay. So the first thing we talk about is to take responsibility. You created this, both people. You created this. So we first thing, get them to see this is your creation. You're not a victim.
Right.
The second thing is, how did you ever get to the point where you would settle for something like this?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, this was where it got fun for me, because I said, okay, we're going to not talk about marriage for the first month or 2 or 3. We're going to talk about understanding how a human being creates their experience.
Mm-hmm.
You did this without knowing how you did it. Imagine you could understand how you're creating your experience. If you could figure that out, then you will understand why you created this. Then the only thing you need to do at that point is to understand what marriage is. And at that point, we heavy loading on tools of how to have a good marriage. What is marriage? How to have a good marriage? Why have a good marriage? What do you do? Prescriptive. And only after we've done those 2 things, then we say, okay, now tell me about the problems in your marriage.
So that's fascinating. So you wanted them to take responsibility and see how they created the situation.
Correct.
So I'm sure that you found that most people created a situation for certain reasons. Maybe they were offended, guarding their egos, or whatever. What did you find the reason why, the common themes, the reason why people created this this negative, disastrous situation?
It's always the same thing. What happens is we get triggered by something, and then we don't know we're being triggered by it. And then we buy into the thinking that trigger created. And then we start creating habits that support that. And then time passes, and that habit becomes the methodology by which the marriage is running.
Give me an example of that.
Let's say a woman is, or a man at the beginning of a marriage, it's quite common for a couple to be insecure. So in dealing with insecurity, and what happens when you're insecure, you're scared. The insecurity creates fear. So you're scared to really say what it is, because all you do is feel the. So the insecurity that you feel will create fear, and that fear will, and you buy into that fear. Now all of a sudden you're dealing with your spouse through fear, not through love. So when you're in certain circumstances, let's say the insecurity is that you're not sure if your spouse loves you so much. So when you're in public and your spouse is giving more attention to other people than to you, so you get that insecurity and it becomes fear. So you go to your spouse afterwards and your spouse says, what's going on? You go, you're not going to say, I'm feeling insecure, unless you're an enlightened person. You're going to go, how dare you not spend time with me? Or, and all of a sudden that pattern of communication, when repeated often enough, becomes your trigger. So as soon as your spouse does something, you're already go, and as soon as you have that face, your spouse sees that something is coming, and you're doing this without even knowing it. And you have those patterns going for 10 years, 15 years. You don't even know that you're creating that in this moment. You just think that's the way the marriage is. You know, you said something very interesting. You know, when couples would come in for the very first time and they would sit on the couch and I would do what's called an intake, the thing that everybody did in that first session was always, hey, what's up with your marriage? They would always blame the other person. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. That's victim mentality. It's their fault. Why do people do that? That's the conditioned thinking over time, which becomes bad habits. If something happens and boom, I'm already, it's their fault. I'm already looking to criticize and to blame. We all do that to some degree. So at the beginning, if I could say, okay, whoa, take a step back. Hold on, let's see, take responsibility first of all. Where's the responsibility come from? Let's go back. Let's philosophically talk about something that didn't happen to your marriage, but let's say it did happen. Let's say you're feeling insecure. And you were at a party and your spouse was spending more time with somebody else than with you. And you were feeling insecure. What would be real? What would be the experience that you'd want to experience, what you'd want to share with your spouse? So if you were an enlightened person,
if you were real or you wanted to share, you would say, you know, honey, I'm feeling a bit insecure now, about myself. And when you're not spending all the time with me, I get very emotional about it.
Yeah, so that I would agree with the first half of your statement, which is that you're saying, wow, look at the experience I've just created for myself by looking at my spouse at a party. Look at the experience I just created for myself. It's not your spouse, it's you. Wow, isn't that interesting? Huh. I just created the experience of insecurity. Then you go to your spouse and you say to them, "Ooh, isn't this interesting? I just created this very negative view because of my insecurity about the situation." And then you talk about that. And there's no blame. It's all loving. The spouse will go, "Wow, I can't believe, wow, you got to let me know. I would never have done that if I knew." And then the person takes their own. So if you get people to start seeing that they're creating the experience of their marriage, not their spouse.
Right.
And they understand how they're doing it, which is a process to understand how you're doing it. Then as soon as you do that, your marriage shifts.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you got to do is, okay, I get it, but what do I do? And at that point we say, okay, I'm going to give you some tools. Boom. And then after that we say, okay, you came in here for some problems. Let's talk about them. And the interesting thing that happened, once they take responsibility, they understand how they're creating their experience, they have tools, they start doing those tools. And once you start doing those tools, there's rapport. Now let's talk about the problems you came in. Magically, 95% of those problems went away because the problems weren't problems. The problems were just a manifestation of your insecurity. The problems were just because the voice in your own head was so loud that you couldn't communicate. The problems were just that you had bad habits, which now you started to change. But there usually are a few real problems. But at that point, we just work through them. Remarkable, remarkable. So I did this for many, many years, and I still do it to this day. I did it for many years. Interestingly enough, that process of understanding how you create. Interesting, that process of learning how to awaken to the fact that you're creating your own experience really has nothing to do with marriage. It's a human thing. It applies to anything. And through some tremendously wonderful series of events, I ended up meeting somebody in New York as a hedge fund manager and said, who I was speaking to about this stuff, and he said, "Can we apply this to business?" And I said, "It applies to anything." And he said, "Great." And so I started applying this understanding of how we create our experience and waking up to your own thinking and your own experience to the business world, and it took off. And for the last 10 years, I've had a very successful performance coaching business for hedge fund managers and CEOs. Now, what happened is that business took over.
What do you mean performance coaching? How well they're doing and managing money and running their business?
Right. So, performance is, in the hedge fund world, performance is generally how well is your fund doing. That's how you measure performance. But what goes into creating great performance is it starts with you. It goes to your family, goes to your partners, goes to your staff, your team, your investors, the market, the environment of the market, the trends in the market, your strategy, and how to deal with mistakes when things don't go well. All of that you are creating an experience. Now, if that experience creates a frenzied mindset where it's just fear and power or stress, well, then that's going to be your methodology for this business, for your investments, and for your life. So using this methodology, wake people up to their experience, they have an entirely different experience of investing and of creating their business, and it trickles down into the performance. About 4 years ago, I said, why limit it to
I just want to ask you a question. I just want to ask you a question.
Yeah,
so
sure.
You have found that performance, and basically how well their fund is doing, there's a direct correlation of their well-being. I mean, there are people that seem to me that I've met in the hedge fund business, no offense, but are real jerks. And they're doing exceptionally well. They're making millions and millions of dollars. So do you really think it comes down to the performance is based on
the hedge fund world? The hedge fund world is a wonderful microcosm. The hedge fund world is a wonderful microcosm for life, like sports is. In sports, it's binary: winning, losing, doing your best, right? The hedge fund world is like that too. There's a daily report card. There's a weekly report card, there's a monthly, and there's a yearly report card. The beautiful thing about the hedge fund world is that it is so humbling. You're up, you're great, you're the king of the world, you could do no wrong. Something happens in China, something happens with an investor, something happens with one of your employees, you're done, you're toast.
You're finished, yeah.
So the beautiful thing about the hedge fund world is new guys who are doing well think that, the sun shines and sets, rises and sets through that. Anyone who's been in the industry has been humbled. And even though these guys from the outside may seem like they're arrogant, and they're not, they are humble. They've been humbled. Now that's true for some of them, most of them. Some of them who don't, so they're not coachable. I don't know them. They don't hire me. They know it all. But the guys who have been humbled, the guys who understand that it's those that have been around a long time understand that it's a multi strategic universe, that it's a beautiful microcosm for all of us in life. And I love working with the hedge fund managers and CEOs, the same thing. It's a beautiful way to teach people about how to wake up to their own experience. Mm-hmm. And then that has ripple effects, because these guys are very powerful people.
Okay, I just want to go on another topic that's fascinating, and then just come back to happywife.com. And I'd like to ask you for one of your great jokes, if you don't mind, even though it's from the past and the end. But I want to ask you, generally speaking, making a difference for the Jewish people. What do you see today in the Jewish world that really, aside from the marriage, really needs to be, there's so much that needs to be done, but from your point of view and all your experience success, what do you see needs to be one of the most top priority things on making a difference for the Jewish people today?
Well, most I'm looking at it, I live in Toronto, and it's a North American Western perspective I'm about to give. But people have gone to sleep. People have gone to sleep.
Right.
They're living in a society, a consumption, we're living in a consumption society where the values that are inculcated in us from, our mother's milk, our values are that where we define ourselves based on these external values such as beauty and fame and power and looks and how much money we make and what car we drive. And the entire society is built around looking at what I don't have, creating a void, and then filling that void, and then getting people to buy it. That's the entire society. I work with a bunch of young guys, and their minds are going, whoa, how can we disrupt? What do we need to do? It's all about creating a void and then filling it and building the essence of what it means to be a Jew. This comes from the Torah when it talks about when Yaakov met his brother Esau after being away for 20 years, and he's bringing his family back into the land of Israel, and he has a confrontation with his brother Esau. And there's one little line there, which is just the essence of it is a mind-blowing idea of the difference between Western culture, Western society, and Western values versus Jewish values. When Jacob starts giving gifts to Esau, Yaakov gives gifts to Esau, and Esau says, "No, I don't need it. I have so much. Yesh li rov. I have so much stuff. I don't need it. Please." No, Yaakov says, "No, I really want you to have it because yesh li kol. I have everything." And that's essentially the difference. The mindset of a Jew is I have everything. I don't need anything. I have everything I need. That which is important, I carry with me here. I have everything I need. The mindset of the Western liberal society that we live in and conservative, not even liberal. The Western society we live in is yesh li rov. I have more. I want more. I need more. I'm constantly looking at what I don't have. Creating a void, filling it. Creating a void and filling it. Which is an illusion. It's a made-up world. It's imperative that we all wake up. It's imperative as a Jewish people and as humanity that we all wake up, because this idea of I want more, what I don't have, I want more, is destroying our planet, destroying our marriages. That the pain is so great that people are medicating themselves. They're destroying their marriages and their relationships over nonsense. The choices are wrong. It's insane what my children and my grandchildren, the world that my grandchildren grow up in. It's scary. It's imperative that we all wake up. And that's the essence of the Jewish message for the world as a light unto the nations. The essence of our message is to stop. Our job is l'avdai l'shamra, is to work the world and to guard the world. God has given us everything we need in this moment to have an extraordinary moment, fulfilling moment in terms of spiritual relationships, in terms of intimate relationships, marriage, parenting, friendships, and in terms of personal fulfillment. Our fulfillment is in this moment, understanding that this moment has everything we need to feel that deep sense of personal fulfillment. It's already here. You don't need to go there to get it. It's right here within us. And Judaism and the message of the Torah is that people need to wake up, that life is an inner game. It's what's happening between our ears, which defines this moment, not what's happening out there. And we can, and what's deeply in here is the the personality, the person we are, but ultimately the essence of who we are is our neshama, our spiritual self. And if we can tap into that, our spiritual self, and realize that true fulfillment is when we can actualize our spiritual self in this moment, the world changes. If we don't do it, no one will. Where's it going to come from?
It's beautiful. Thank you, Aryeh. Rabbi Pamensky, thank you. Tell me, if people want to learn more about happywife.com, what should they do?
They should go to happywife.com. Let me tell you what we did why I'm reintroducing.
Can I ask you also to throw in one of those jokes before we end?
Sure, I'll finish with a joke. But I just want to let you know why I'm reintroducing happywife.com. After all my years of working with couples, the internet has come such a long way to the point where you can actually, like we're doing right now, you can actually have intimate conversation with people all over the world. I decided to take the lesson of that 6-month process that I used to help couples. And I'm in the process now of doing it in live webinars and information so that couples using the internet can really make their marriages extraordinary from wherever they are, using the same methodology I spoke about in the counseling through the internet. And happywife.com, check it out.
Okay.
All right. Who want one of my marriage jokes from the seminar?
Yeah.
So we talk about. So in the initial seminar, we talk about men and women. By the way, you can download the seminar for free. The Happy Wife seminar for free at happywife.com.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So go.
Everybody should get that. It's
yeah.
imperative. It's required reading.
It sure is. That's I think it's 6-part or 7-part, very practical. And yeah, just go download it, or you can stream it or download it for free on happywife.com.
Amazing.
But this is one of the jokes from that seminar. Is that one of the ideas is that when we talk about men and women are different. How different?
Very different.
So different.
So different.
And men and women are so different. They ultimately they'll speak different languages. Rav Noach used to say he said to me in that talk, he said, Aryeh, women speak Chinese. The only thing is, it sounds remarkably like English. So Rav Noach was saying, we use words, exactly the same words, but they have entirely different meanings. So I will say to my wife after, she knows I'm doing this podcast, and I'll say to her, she'll ask me, how did it go? I think it's going quite nicely. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll say, fine.
Fine.
So I'll say to my wife, I knew she was doing something today, and I'll go to her and I'll say, what do I mean by fine, by the way? I mean, fine. It went great. I'll ask my wife about something that happened to her today, and she'll go, fine. What does she mean? Who knows what she means? I mean, she could mean fine. She could mean not fine. She could mean, how dare you ask me at a time like this? And it's all in the word fine, because men and women use words differently.